We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Room C. My name's Nick Merrick, and I'll be moderating this panel today on global bank, local impact. We're thrilled to have three people representing Bank of America with us today. Jennifer Chandler, Joe Velasquez, and Evelyn Solorzano. So we're thrilled to have you all. Bank of America, you all have probably heard the phrase too big to fail or systemically important. Those were words that got codified after the '08 financial crisis. There's actually legislation and designations and so on. So Bank of America is one of those financial institutions that is critical to the world economy. Think about a master plumbing system that exists globally that's necessary for capital to flow and for commerce to occur. Bank of America is one of those institutions that plays a critical role. As such, it has imposed on it responsibilities not other institutions have, and then perhaps some benefits as well. But what we want to explore this morning is a bank that, like we said, is systemically important to the world and national economy, but how do they have a local impact in line with the mission purpose that we talked about? So I guess what I would ask to start off is that each of the three of you would give a quick background, and when you were invited to come speak to a conference about mission and purpose, you didn't study up on loan loss reserve or gap balance sheet management or things like that. What did mission, what kind of struck you of what you wanted to talk about, and how Bank of America is applying those sorts of values and focus to the local economy? So Jennifer, we'll start with you.
Thank you, and if we need to get into the loan loss reserves, we can do some of that too.
Okay.
But no, thank you. Mission's a lot more fun to talk about. And I love the context you raised, the systemically important banks, and that's come up with the disruption in the banking industry recently. And we just had a great conversation on that yesterday around the regional banks. They play a very important role as well, and you saw that we came in and supported Republic Bank with $5 billion. That was very intentional. We need the whole system to thrive. But to your point, we're a big part of that economic engine. We bank almost every other household. In some cities, we do bank every other household, like this one. And so to your point, we see that as a very important responsibility for us to not only make sure the capital is flowing through the system and the engine, but to make sure we're thriving in our communities. So when I think about mission, I think about Bank of America's mission, and that is to help people live their financial lives and to help our communities thrive. We're very intentional about that, and we can go deep into some of that, but it's one of the reasons I've been here for about 22 years and hope to stay. It's a company I can feel incredibly good about working with. So for us, it means a couple of things. We talk about the genius of the and, or the power of the and you hear that phrase a lot now, and you hear purpose and profits. We've been saying that as long as I can remember, in particular under the last 11 or so years under Brian Moynihan, our CEO. So he firmly believes that we can do both. We can generate profits and purpose. So our mission is to do just that, again, help people live their financial lives and help our communities and our clients thrive.
Nick, thank you for the question. When I think about what you said, mission and purpose, within the division that I'm aligned at Bank of America, which is neighborhood and community lending, our mission today is to drive and increase home ownership, very particularly in low to moderate and multicultural communities. We can see historically the gap in home ownership, especially in multicultural communities and demographics. To bring a solution to that is our community home ownership commitment, and I'll provide you some insights and details to that. But why the commitment? Why our mission? As you look at statistics today, home ownership is still one of the fundamental stones to building and creating wealth in America today. That's still it. I'm sure there are many stories around the room. I know I can tell you, my own story of home ownership. It is that foundation that families can fix themselves to create, to build wealth, to build equity. And so our mission is to bring solutions to that. There are many barriers to homeownership, different than they were probably 10, 20 years ago. I'm sure all of us can think maybe a decade ago and say, wow, it was easier to obtain homeownership then. Rates were different. The price of the valuation of homes were different. There have been many challenges along the way, and today we have those. We were challenged with, we looked at our statistics on our home buyer insights report, and it tells us some of the key challenges that people are facing across America today. The price of home, that's one thing that may keep someone from entering to the market. They look at interest rates. What we want to do is we want to provide solutions to that so that home ownership continues to be that, again, that foundational stone that helps families that dream the dream of home ownership, thus create wealth for them and their family.
Thank you, Nick, for that question. And when we talk about the mission, I represent a line of business that is crucially important for the development of our communities, and that's small business. And within the small business segment, our focus has been and will continue to be to really implement ways in which we can provide access to capital to our small business owners. We see it very, very often where the main reason why business fails is because they don't have access to capital. We published our small business owner report just recently, and 82% of our small business owners are looking to obtain capital this year in the next 12 months. So it's crucially important that we understand the need, that we understand what's happening within our small business ecosystem so that we can find the right solution. I've been with the bank for 19 years, and I'm proud to say that we've always have our customer on the top of everything that we do. We're very customer-centric, and we live our mission, we live our purpose, and we live it through our commitments in our community.
Let's come up with a case example. So let's just say that there's a family in South Dallas, and they're a renter, either a home or apartment. There's multiple sources of income, within the family. They have their eye on a house. They're aware something's for sale. So they drive into a Bank of America branch in their neighborhood. They're intimidated. They're scared. They have fears that some of which are realistic, some of which are unrealistic. What happens when they walk through the door?
One of the, as we take into consideration that purchasing a home is an incredibly emotional process for anyone. Many of the solutions, or one of them specifically, is we have a team of professionals that are experts in affordable lending products and programs. Community lending officer is their title. This lending specialist is exactly as the title says. They're the subject matter experts. They're going to handheld a first-time home buyer through the process, providing them with every solution that's available, including our own proprietary grants that I'll mention, but also leveraging any other product or program that's available in the market. For example, City of Dallas offers a tremendous home buyer assistance program. And I love to share with you a story exactly as you described. There's a particular family, young family, 2 little ones, a baby. I talked to them for the first time, and they said, homeownership is far what I can think of. I think that's far for me, maybe 10 years from now. So begin to inquire, tell me a little bit about why you think that, and I'd like to introduce you to a community lending officer. Short story, long story short, here's an individual, young family, 2 kids, didn't think that homeownership was within their reach because they thought 20% down payment, well, that's going to take 10, 15, 20 years, depending on what the earnings would be. Introducing them to a community lending officer, they begin to learn and become educated. Now they can enter into a process where we can introduce them to trusted advisors that provide home buyer education through HUD certified counseling agencies. So that's a trusted source. We educate them on the solutions that we offer. We look to see if they qualify for our closing cost grant up to $7,500. We look to see if they qualify for our down payment grant, which is up to $10,000. Combined $17,500 that is not repayable. There's no recourse on that. It's an outright grant. There's no deed restrictions on the property. The individual and family wanted to live in some of the new developments in southern Dallas. And so I'm sure you all are familiar with the Bottom District, just south of downtown. Connected with the builder that's bringing light to this community that hadn't seen new construction in years. And again, long story short, we have a beautiful young family, 2 kids. They have now, I think they've been there about 1.5 years in this brand new home, Bottom District. They were able to obtain the grants that we offered through Bank of America, first-time home buyer. They closed on that property, and I believe their equity at closing was at least $50,000 equity from the time they began construction to closing. So think about the significant impact that that has in a family. Instant equity of $50,000. Now they're building wealth. They're setting the generations within their family in creating wealth and setting the standard that this is how you begin the process and the pathway to homeownership.
And I would love to tag onto that story, and it was a great question. And in that scenario, that's wonderful if someone were to walk into a banking center. But the reality is the world is so digital, that's huge. If they can walk through those two doors, we can typically get them in a home. So a lot of the work we're doing, and why I wanted to bring Joe and Evelyn, is we localize all that we do. We're this big global bank, but I'm born and raised, multi-generational here. Joe knows the market because we're boots on the ground. I see some nonprofits in the room. Joe will go to mega churches. We will go to UNT Dallas South Campus. We will talk to builders about we need more development, like the bottom districts. So we collaborate in a big way. I just told my Uber driver about it, and I'm going to say it again because we just need to get the good word out. $17,500. We will cover your closing costs and your down payment. You can buy down the rate with some of those dollars in this current environment, and there are over 1,000 properties in North Texas right now, and they're not all just in South Dallas. They are all over the Metroplex. So for us, to your point, and why we're here today, is we need people to walk through those doors or go online to take advantage of the opportunity we have on the homeownership side.
One other thought, and maybe this is going a little bit off Broadway on this one. It's always bothered me that working class people and poor people pay more for the same services that people that are upper middle class or wealthy pay, particularly when it relates to financial services. I think of rent to own, credit cards, auto loans, and all those sorts of things. When someone comes in and you're talking about a holistic approach, you haven't used that word, but that's what you've implied. What proactive things do you do to sort of call out and say that you should not be paying that much for that, and provide that sort of holistic advice to basically lower, what we'd say in financial terms, their cost of capital?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody can comment here, but first and foremost, I go back to what I started with. Our CEO has said all along we can drive profits and purpose. And believe me, our shareholders have asked some questions. When we were one of the first to say, hey, we're going to stop the overdraft fees, right? We thought that's a big hit to the bottom line. We do short-term loans for $5. We do not want our clients going to predatory lenders. So if you're in a bind, you're having a problem with your telephone bill, call us. We'll give you a short-term loan, $5. So we've had a lot of those bells and whistles, but to be honest, in some forums that's really applauded. In other forums, we get asked, what are you doing? So we have to go generate more income on the top line to make that happen. But that's just one example. Joe, I know you have others that you can provide as well.
Yeah, when it comes to resources, as we launched our community homeownership commitment, by the way, that's a $15 billion commitment through the year 2025. And the mission there is to assist at minimum 60,000 families achieve homeownership. The commitment has 3 pillars. One is proprietary grants, as I just mentioned, up to $17,500. Number 2, mortgage products that are specifically designed to help that population. Number 3 are resources. To touch on your point, on the resources, we are investing a tremendous amount of effort and funds to bring education to the forefront so that families have an opportunity to become educated on how to better manage finances. Better Money Habits, for example, is a platform, an on-site website that we have in partnership with the Khan Academy, and it provides online education. And you have just a plethora of videos and segments so anyone can very quickly go in and become educated on, what's the best use of a checking account? Why should I have a savings account? Should I use a payday loan? What's credit? How do I improve my credit? What's the process to homeownership? And by the way, we have thousands of what we call Better Money Habit champions throughout the Bank of America enterprise, where we're ready to come out to a school, to a church, to wherever it may be that we're invited, and have a Better Money Habits champion come and offer that type of education. Our mission is to bring that to the forefront and have as many families become educated so they can make educated decisions for their finances.
And Nick, we see it a lot in the small business segment, and I can give you a story, and that usually happens with 7 out of 10 business owners. You have a vision, you have an idea, you really are inspired to become an entrepreneur, and you set up your business. A lot of the times, they don't have the structure, they don't have a business plan, they don't know how to set it up successfully. And so they rely on what they see or what they get advertised. And so they usually get mailers that say, oh, you need access to capital for your business. Here's a loan. Here's the EGNES, different institutions that offer loans at much higher rates and at terms that are not favorable for that small business owner, which in the long term is going to place a burden onto their small business. So what we see a lot is lack of education and all the resources that are available to provide access to capital. Because if you understand your resources, if you are informed, then you'll make a better decision on what's good for your business. So we have, and I, as a community manager for small business, we provide educational classes, one-on-one seminars, one-on-one coaching sessions. We provide virtual seminars, in-person seminars. We work with the chambers across all cities to make sure that we deliver the content that small business owners may need. But we also have programs that are easily and are readily available online, such as the START Resource Center. It really guides a client or a small business owner into what steps do I need to take to set up my business successful? Where can I get access to capital? Can I reach out to local community institutions that can provide funding? Or can I come to the bank? Is this the right approach, right? Because we offer solutions that are for every stage of your business life cycle. So I think it's a matter of really bringing more awareness of all of our resources and educational resources that we have.
So going bigger picture, Brian Moynihan, who's the CEO, makes an overall bank commitment to mission and purpose, and somehow that has to be texified a little bit. So maybe talk a little bit about that process of how you milk the mothership for resources and then make it something that appeals to the Texas, Dallas, North Texas community.
It's a great question, and I could talk about this for quite a while, so I'll try to give a few examples. But you're exactly right, and I mentioned it earlier, but we are a big global company, but we do try to be hyper-local, and we do that a few ways. I have 2 jobs at the bank. I lead the endowment foundation team, and I'm also their local market president. Every major community has that. A suburban-sized community has it. We're here to connect all of the dots with every part of the bank together to serve our clients, so we can do that in a seamless way. But we're also here to know our communities in and out. So we have top of the house funding, and it's a very large amount to your point. We can talk about how that's tapped into. Then we do have local budgets. Here we give out about $5 million annually to local nonprofits. We also match our employee giving, which is huge. We have 14,500 people in North Texas. When they make a gift, they go in a system and we match it. So if you think about the dollars going there, that's tremendous. We have a very generous workforce. That also gives us really good information. Where are they giving? They're working hard for us. They're making a great wage. What are they giving to? So we don't invade privacy. We don't ask about their giving, but we see trends and we can see, okay, this particular issue is of importance to this community. So we use some of that information. We have a grant process, which many of you know, where you can submit a grant request to Bank of America. We typically focus on job, housing, and hunger. But again, we know our communities. In Texas, workforce is huge, so we do a lot of great work there. So we have our grant process, but then to be honest, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, we roll up our sleeves. We just did a community roundtable yesterday. We had Dallas College there. We had local CEOs. We had Catholic Charities. We had City of Dallas, the Chamber. We see our role as really knowing this market and where can those dollars impact change immediately. So we're not just giving out a grant. We want to see effective, impactful change. A couple of real examples would be $1 million we gave to Dallas College. We didn't just give $1 million. We said, then let's meet weekly and figure out how do we get these individuals in North Texas that need a living wage to be trained to come to a living wage job. So we created a program where they get their SIE brokerage license. Think about it. Schwab's here. Goldman's building a big building. We're here selfishly. We want the talent. You can come out of Dallas College with that brokerage license. Whether you're going to do compliance or be an FA, you're going to make more than a living wage. We're going to put you in a house that Joe's going to give you a grant for. And we're going to provide financial literacy. Other examples are real time. Parkland Hospital, the work we're doing in the southern sector at Redbird, that's another example. And then I think you asked the question, how do we go to the top of the house? So something's come across our desk. A few years ago, the Medal of Honor Museum came, and we're the Bank of the Cowboys, and Jerry and the family came and said, hey, we're behind this thing. But most importantly, hey, we're going to honor some of the world's and the United States' most honored servicemen, our Medal of Honor winners. So that was a bigger ask than our North Texas budget, and we took that up the chain, and really a phenomenal building that they're building out there by the stadium. It's going to be something that unifies our country. It's going to have great programming, so we came in with $1 million there. Last example, and again, I could keep talking, that's very real to us is the homelessness issue in North Texas. Many of you, or if you're based here, you're seeing the impact of that as we drive around our communities. We work downtown. We want to have the walkability we just talked about in the last session. So rather than just a small grant on that particular front, we wanted to find what is the most effective solution in North Texas and how do we lead the way. And we determined and believed one of the great solutions was the Rapid Rehousing Initiative. That's where we take people from the homeless encampments, and we don't just take them to a shelter, but we work with a number of nonprofits to put them into a home over time. That was a $2 million gift. That was when I had to go up the chain and say, this is real, we're a large, important market. Can you invest on this? We know it works. And if you look at any of the numbers and the statistics, we went from over 4,000 down. We got most of the veterans off the streets, and that is working. So we have to show that it works, that it's effective, that we know our market, and then those dollars tend to follow.
But anything that's very, very sort of Dallas or North Texas specific that you could point to? I mean, obviously having people that are speak Spanish, I would think would be very important in our community. Anything else? And then Evelyn in particular, I'd be interested for you to comment on minority-owned small businesses and what fears do they have? Which of those fears are realistic? Which ones are not realistic? Maybe talk a little bit about your engagement with that cohort.
Thank you for that, because that's very, very important and dear to my heart. I'm Hispanic of nature, I'm Colombian, and I can relate. I'm also a business owner. My husband is a business owner. So I can relate to the challenges and struggles that every business owner has. And one of the major things is that they feel as if they do not have the same level of access to capital, right? And that's crucial. And so for me, it is important to provide the right educational approach with them and understanding what their priorities are. What are they looking to do with their business? Where do they see themselves in 2 years? And then from there, create a path that will get them to where they need to be, whether that is by starting and building credit. I'm coming to find out that a lot of business owners do not know how to build good credit commercially. And that's important because if you want to take advantage of low interest rates or the best solutions that the banks provide, you got to have that. And so it's bringing it to the level that they can understand in language that they can understand. For example, and she's here, we're working with Dallas College on having a seminar that talks about bank language 101 for small business owners. It starts with that, for them understanding what do lending institutions look for? What do we talk about? What do we review? What financial documents do we review? But beyond it and further than that, we live our commitment through the things that we are offering our small business owners, especially in low to moderate and multicultural business communities. And we launched specifically here in Dallas, and there were only selected markets that were chosen because we are the voice of our people within our larger, executives that make the decisions. But we launched the Small Business Down Payment Grant Program, and that's available in the city of Dallas, and that covers 102 or a little bit more than that of zip codes that business owners can actually buy their commercial real estate property instead of leasing it, instead of paying the landlord. They can actually acquire wealth by acquiring their first or even a second commercial real estate property. And that's where it starts, right? Promoting wealth, promoting transformational wealth, and promoting generational wealth. And business owners, if you're paying the landlord, you're not going to acquire wealth. You may have an exit strategy, you may have a way to do a business valuation, but if you don't have assets that support that, you're not generating the wealth that you could. So it's bringing that awareness of the program, of the grant that exists. It launched in August, and we're seeing some success, and we're seeing a lot of business owners are taking advantage of it. I can share with you that we actually have $30 million secure in approvals within our markets, and that equates to about $500,000 of that grant money that is locally given to the market selected.
You know, a couple of things that I can think about that are specific to the Dallas market. One is our mortgage product called Community Affordable Loan Solution. You might have heard this. We launched this in August of last year. I was getting messages from friends saying that we broke the internet when that launched because there was communication was all over the place. Community Affordable Loan Solution is a mortgage product. It's a special purpose credit program. That's the terminology from a regulatory perspective. It's designed to provide mortgage financing in communities that historically have been challenged in doing so. It's available in 5 markets, and Dallas is one of them. That product will automatically inject $10,000 in down payment. This is separate, by the way, from the grants that I just talked about. This is specific to the product. It injects $10,000 of down payment for eligible buyers, and we will pay all of the non-reoccurring closing cost, all of that. It has, we will not look at the FICO score to determine credit approval. We will look at the credit history of the buyer because we want to make sure that they are set up for successful home ownership. And it has some other attributes, but that's one specific to Dallas. The other is, I would say internally, one of our phenomenal values to the community is the 11 employee networks that are within Bank of America. We have the North Texas Employee Network Council. We meet on a monthly basis. That's 11 groups, employee resource groups within the bank, all with different interests, different missions, different from a culture perspective. In fact, we meet this afternoon, and that's to discuss best practices. How do we bring the best of Bank of America to the community, to our associates, and to our clients? And that is unique because that's, there's funding that, you know, through Jennifer Chandler, the local market office, these resource groups actually get some type of funding so they can go out and create significance throughout the market.
And just to add to that question, and again, there's so many examples. You don't have to keep up with all of this. We're happy to follow up after. But another big thing just is hiring in this community. And there's nothing better. We volunteer a ton, too. We volunteer over 100,000 hours a year. We're out just about every nonprofit event because it's part of our culture. We do it because we love it. But there's nothing better than being, I've had this a couple of times now, I'll be at the mayor's backpack fair, and one of my volunteers is getting choked up, and she says, I remember when I was on the other end of that line. Vickery Meadow, Immigrant, if you've ever done any nonprofit work over there, phenomenal way the city's come together. One of our most senior tech leads grew up in that neighborhood. So we're starting to see this benefit, and it's part of our culture to give it back. But we raised our minimum wage. It's going to be 25 by 2025. We have tuition reimbursement. So the beauty of it is when you see that come full circle, and we're hiring locally. And Harsh Agarwal leads our family office. I can't help but point him out over here. He does a tremendous job with students, and he talks about his experience. He does work here at SMU or University of Dallas. He's now leading a huge portion of our whole family office organization. So we try to bring examples, to your point, too, in language, not just in Spanish, but we are out. We reflect our community and a very diverse organization. So if we need to tap someone for the Chinese Student Association, which we've done here, we bring them out. So we try to do things in language in the community where we're trusted.
So, Jennifer, when you're at the Bank of America local bank presidents meeting with you and all your counterparts, maybe talk a little bit about what your counterparts are jealous about of what you have going on in Texas, and maybe something you've learned from one of them.
Great question. And the spotlight is absolutely on Dallas and has been, and you've all heard of it, 1,000 people moving to Texas a day. So first and foremost, they're jealous of the growth, all the businesses and people moving here. But we do tend to lead the way. So again, solving some of these issues, the work we did with Dallas College, just twice this week, Joe and I have been in a forum, just the session we left, where we hear loud and clear not only the grants you need to purchase a home, but you need more cash and grants to help improve a home, similar to a HELOC. So he and I will go back and have that discussion. But we tend to be a hub for the innovation. Like Zelle was invented here, our tech team is inventing. So we tend to be the first at a lot. With that comes great expectations, though. Learning from others, I would say, again, Charlotte's the home base for us. We can always learn from them because they are such a strong force there. We do see things in Atlanta. Just had a discussion yesterday around housing that we're going to take back to the group that we know has worked well there. Some other things on the business front in Nashville. So we do learn from one another, but again, I think they're jealous of the growth we have here, and again, we tend to lead the way.
How do you all navigate through this concept of mission and purpose with all the culture wars and all the issues surrounding that, so that you're advocating the culture and principles you believe in, but trying to not take a side on the divisive issues of the day? How do you navigate that institutionally?
I'm happy to comment and feel free to chime in. And to be honest, I have felt so good about working with this company the entire time. But of course, the last few years, you've seen some divisiveness in this country. And there's been nothing better than to have a CEO like we have in Brian Moynihan, and you know exactly what you get. So during the pandemic, he started a monthly Zoom with us. And it was no agenda, just open mic. And that was incredibly helpful for us to really understand his view. But first and foremost, it's a couple of things. We employ over 200,000 people. As you can imagine, they sit on both sides of the aisle. Mm-hmm. We bank almost every other household. They sit on both sides of the aisle. So it goes back to where I started the conversation. Our mission is to help our clients live their financial lives. That is our mission. We provide capital, and we need this economic engine going. That is first and foremost our North Star. So I talked about a couple of things. Our giving is based on the communities. It's based on the work that and the voice of our employees that give us those ideas, the needs of our community. We try to make sure each and every one of those is balanced in all that we do. Brian does sit on the CEO roundtable, and I think that's where you see a lot of the press and the focus. And I think, again, he's very thoughtful. He doesn't go into every one of those discussions as, you know, an individual, though. Brian will very much tell you, we listen to our board, we listen to our clients and our shareholders and our employees in every decision we make. When we're making a decision, when we're moving forward, whether it's an ESG commitment or DEI commitment, we believe it's the best thing for our shareholders, our clients, and our company. And we can go deeper into some examples. But I personally feel that we have been very balanced. Sometimes things get picked up in the media one way or the other, but I've had a fairly close seat along the way, and I would say all of our commitments have been balanced and very thoughtful. And again, goes back to providing capital, and we believe capitalism can help address many of society's issues.
You know, I think of two things, Nick. As I mentioned, employee networks, known as employee resource groups. If you look at the history of the networks, it goes decades ago, where I believe it was a group of employees throughout the Xerox Corporation. Y'all remember that name, Xerox? And it was a group of Black African-American associates within that company that felt misrepresented. And so they began to form the employee resource group. That has evolved quite from then to where we are today. Yes, there is a cultural theme to the employee networks, but you have also maybe activities, interest groups, and we are proud. 11 employee networks in North Texas. I'm honored to serve as a co-executive sponsor for the council here in North Texas. And I would say that within the group, we have seen a tremendous amount of growth in the type of discussion that happens among not just the groups, but within associates. We have had a series of courageous conversations, and that's literally the title, where associates from across the company are invited to participate and perhaps listen to a panel where individuals from different backgrounds are having these courageous conversations. What are some of the blind spots that we may have from a cultural perspective? And so we're having this open dialogue that has created, the topic, within the lunchrooms, where now these conversations are happening among us, among ourselves, as friends and as colleagues, and that has opened up to a number of topics that we're bringing to the forefront that may have been sort of the elephant in the room years past, where now that's at the table. And so there is this culture of having the open dialogue about courageous conversations. That's one. And the other is externally. We collaborate and partner with multicultural business trade organizations. So for example, in the Hispanic real estate segment, there's the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, a national organization with over 100 chapters across the country. There is National Association of Real Estate Brokers, the African American Real Estate Trade Group. There's ARIA, Asian Real Estate Association of America, and there are others. Those are the three top multicultural groups. We are a proud sponsor of those three organizations. They all host national conferences. We're there. We bring our associates to the table. We engage and connect with their members, not only at the national level, but as you're talking about locally, we actually connect and collaborate with them at the local level. So here in Dallas, There are, I believe, 9 of those local chapters from those multiple organizations across the Metroplex. We are involved, we are collaborating, meaning we're supporting their mission in driving multicultural homeownership, which is exactly part of our mission and purpose. So we have those collaborations throughout the marketplace to make sure that not only that we have a seat at the table, but to demonstrate that we share the common goal of driving, creating wealth and driving the opportunity within the multicultural communities.
Yeah, just personally, I always think that the most inclusive thing is the marketplace, and that's where you know, people have the strongest. They're not labeled; they come as they are, and I've always found that that's the place where inclusivity works the best, because you want to do business with people who sell better, quicker, cheaper, and make your life easier and so on, and that tends to make you colorblind and issue blind on the things. That's just my own personal experience. Would you all agree with that?
Absolutely, and again, it goes back to hiring, right? The best thing we can do is hire, right, and provide capital, and that's really where we see our lane. We do a lot of these other great things, and they're there if you have an interest in it, and it brings us together and makes us a great company, but absolutely, it's the capital that's fueling that in our economy, and again, hiring, so agree.
And Nick, to piggyback on the question that was asked right before this, is I can see it on my perspective, having worked for the company for 19 years. And 2 things, I'm privileged to have the ability to bring topics to an open table. But I also know that that is a responsibility that I also have as I'm engaging in a community and understanding what is actually being talked about, to bring those topics back to the table, and so that we can have an open discussion around it. Because we have that responsibility to be that voice of our community back to our internal, networking groups or our internal processes that we have, so that then we can create the solution that is going to be beneficial for the communities that we serve. So I can say that I have the privilege of seeing and witnessing the evolution that our company has had over the years, especially after Brian Moynihan took over, because he has created that environment of inclusivity and that environment of welcoming you as a whole, and who you are, having the ability for you to bring your ideas to the table, and having that open discussion.
Yeah, I'm personally very appreciative. I actually received my first job offer from NCNB back in 1985. Our upstart telecom company in the mid-'90s was financed by Nations Bank Credit. They ran numerous yellow lights in giving us that small business loan at that time. And I have a son who's not particularly adept at money management, so I use Zelle probably 3 times a day, and sometimes it's just $1.14 I send him or whatever, like that. So I've touched many of your products and over time, and can say I'm a very, very satisfied customer. Let me ask you, when you're on American Airlines, does it bother you when they do that credit card thing? I know that's not Bank of America. You ever thought of like bringing a stack of credit card applications and kind of going behind the flight attendant and just kind of handing them out? I mean, does that bug you?
I do notice it.
Yeah.
Why, several times a month, and we have quite enough credit card business. But I thought you were going to go another direction with Zelle, because every time I sit on a plane, someone brings up something, and I usually can say you can resolve that with Zelle or in the app, or I have an app to get them to the right place. But I usually end up having some business done on the plane, regardless of who I'm sitting next to. But yes, I do hear that every time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zelle is just an awesome product. I mean, if you sort of, like in the Hispanic community, when you aware of what the fees that used to be charged, say, to send money to Mexico or Central South America, and now with Zelle and other things like that, the transaction costs are close to 0, right?
And we think about, and this is said a lot, but we think about what one of the benefits that COVID brought to us was that digital transformation and everybody adopting to a digital channel much faster than what we've seen in the past 10 years, right? And with that comes solutions that are going to be specific to the need of every client. So whether it is that it is a sale transaction that's going to benefit you because it's going to give you cost savings, when you transfer money, or whether it is the ability for you as a small business owner to have a cash flow application, and that way you can understand your budgeting and what's coming out of your account and what's actually coming in, and understand your revenue streams. So when we think about the digital solutions that we've created in the last few years, the number of patents that we have on a digital world, it's also amazing to see how people are actually adapting to those much faster.
We have more patents than NASA, and a lot of that is happening right out of Plano, Texas, right down the street. So you wouldn't believe Zelle, example, we have our own AI system, Erica. You've probably talked to Erica before, just fascinating and evolving by the minute. So.
If I may, a quick public service announcement. I know none of us do this in the room, but tell your friends and family, do not send money through Zelle through somebody they don't know, any random number. You can imagine, you call it paradise, kissing goodbye. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of activity that we see, unfortunately, on the fraud side with electronic transfers. And so you'd be amazed of the stories that we hear about, hey, I'm going to rent a house, and there's a lot of people looking for homes today. So there will be this gimmick where, hey, here's somebody will post a house for sale. Somebody will text on it and say, yeah, send me the deposit, and the key is in the box, at the door. They send, $200-300, and it doesn't have to be thousands of dollars or small amounts. But just again, a quick public service announcement. Tell your friends and family, do not send money to someone you don't know or somebody's random telephone number. But it has transformed. The number of transactions that we see on Zelle just continue to grow month over month, year over year. It's phenomenal.
Great. Well, any other comments or thoughts from our Bank of America people, or does anyone here have a question? Sir?
If a developer of large-scale build-to-rent communities wants to turn that community from build-to-rent to own, who do I talk with at Bank of America?
Right here. Absolutely. We'd love to. And we've seen a couple of those models across the country, a couple of them very particular here in Dallas, and we'd love to visit with you about that.
Thank you for describing a lot of your current innovative services. What do you see in the terms of emerging markets in the banking industry?
It's a great question, and I sometimes answer this just honestly, I don't know. It is happening that fast. And again, we even just since March and some disruption in the industry, some things have changed. But I would say it's happening by the moment. Again, a lot of it right here in Plano, Texas. So you can't go a panel without talking about ChatGPT and AI right now. So I think the biggest thing is leveraging the AI, right? We've had it long before the recent news, and we've used it, and we're trying to use it carefully. We are a data company, as you can imagine. We're starting to share more of those insights, what we can see in spending by real time, as a big leading economic indicator, right? This week dipped a little bit on products, still strong on services. So you're going to see AI drive that answer and our clients' needs. So anything we know the client needs to do, they're doing through AI or a transaction, that's pretty obvious. That will improve. Other disruptors and things, I think this world is evolving so quickly, so I can't answer it specifically, but I will tell you we'll be on the front edge. We have an unlimited technology budget, and we will do what we need to do. For cyber and technology, we'll spend what we need to spend.
Sir?
I'm a trustee at Dallas College, and I really appreciate your company and the interaction. I think there's so much more we can do. And as we determined yesterday, we talked about the determinants of education are similar to those of healthcare. As you just talked about a project where you build to rent to own, wouldn't that be a great idea if you had we've got 1,600 acres of land we own at Dallas College. Why couldn't we build a project, public-private partnership with a developer, rent to own, with the incentive that if you're in college, you now have a place to live while you're in college, but then when you graduate, you can own that as a condominium park, or either create equity and sell it to the next student.
You are seeing the beauty of how we are hyper-local in real time, Nick. So that is exactly why, or one of the reasons we had the roundtable in our building yesterday. Chancellor Vernon was there, said the same thing, which is what we wanted him to say. A couple of builders were in the room. You're welcome to be part of that conversation. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And there's other examples of that. Bottom is one of them. We need the landowners. We're doing work with the city of Dallas as well. I know Lynn McBee was in the other room, but that's a perfect, beautiful example, and we hope to make that happen with everybody's collaboration.
Okay. Quick question. We have 1 minute to go.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. Really, my question involves the children. It's
Great question. Yeah, and we can stay after. I know we're on the minute. So yes, early childhood is absolutely important as well, and we've been very involved from the beginning in the city of Dallas and Tarrant County. I have a peer there, so we can talk afterwards. But yes, we fund early childhood. We believe it's important. Also, child care, right, as a challenge to workforce. We do a lot of support on that front too to make sure we're supporting those facilities on the child care front. And again, I go back to our volunteers. Many of them, that's their passion. They're in the local community, but we can talk after. And yes, we do fund early childhood as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate everyone from Bank of America. Evelyn, Joe, Jennifer, thank you. And
Thank you,
thanks
Nick.
for attending.